Hello and welcome in to the SorareData Strategy Show. I am Andrew Laird. You can find me as Lairdinho on Sorare, joined as almost always by PSU fans too, that way, Sean Newsham, to talk about our favorite U23 players that we probably don't want to buy or we would probably sell if we bought, maybe. We talked a lot about some of the guys on the list that we're going to have later today. And Sean, I said on Twitter, I think people are going to get really angry at us.
So here has told me, he messaged me that I better not say anything wrong or he's going to make my head wobble, is what he told me. So, I mean, I've already been threatened with head wobbling. Yeah. So we'll have to see how it goes. But yeah, I imagine our good DGen buddy Scosmo went out there because he saw the poster boy Ansu Fati, and he's giving him credit for 20 decisives on the season.
No, I think that was Hakimi he was talking about.
Oh, it is Hakimi. I didn't realize it was off something you said.
Yeah.
No, I could see that with Hakimi. 20 seems reasonable.
All right. Before we dive into crapping all over your favorite U23 stars, thank you to everyone who has joined us live. Shriram was in first 23 minutes before we started, so well done. Zarky got in early as well. John Andrews, Mike Baston, good to see you guys. Thank you for coming in. What's up, Sam? Tugs here. Alex Wilson. Techers here for the D-Pump of the week. I love that phrase for sure. Chris Quirk, peace, love, understanding. Really appreciate all of you guys. Oh, Quinny's here. What's up, Quinny? Thank you all for joining us.
I have a surprise for you at some point in the next month. Laird knows what it is, but I don't know when I'm gonna show you, but it'll be something you'll be excited about.
Who's this for?
Quinny.
Oh, Quinny. Okay.
Yes, you know what it is, but no one else does, and I'll let Quinny know when it happens. But Quinny will be very excited, I feel. Do you agree?
I'm probably not
sure what it is.
Yeah, I don't even remember what it is now.
Yeah,
you'll have to remind me later. So yes, thank you to everyone for joining us. If you guys wouldn't mind hitting the like button on the video, that's always appreciated. If you're watching the replay of this, also appreciate if you guys hit that. Nanzo, thank you for joining us. And Jimmer, Kai Havertz pretty underpriced. Oh boy. How was he not on the list?
Because you had to go look so far down.
For those of you who look at the description of this video, the link to the SorareData watch list that we put together for this video is in there. We're going to pull it up during the stream anyway. If anybody is listening to the audio version of this, if you're on Spotify, there is video, so you can pull it up kind of if you wanted to see what we were talking about. Otherwise, everybody watching on YouTube can see it anyway. We're not going to talk about, we didn't have plans to talk about everyone on the list. And I don't think that everyone on the list is necessarily overpriced. It was kind of guys that we thought we should discuss and kind of talk about why we think they may be overpriced, not necessarily that they definitely are overpriced. Just be aware of that just because they're on the list doesn't mean we're crapping all over.
Yeah, that's true. I guess we set that up. Yeah, some of the guys we have on the list because we thought we should be talking about them anyways. So that definitely, don't just be seeing someone on the list and be like, oh my God, they think he's overpriced. Could just be we think that they're expensive, but maybe they are worthwhile as well.
Correct. There are two things I want to jump into before we pull the list up. The first is if you have not subscribed to the SorareData newsletter, please do that if you're interested in more stuff. The fourth issue went out last night, this morning, for those of you in Europe. So for the English version, it's just soraredata.substack.com. We tweeted about it too. So if you just pull up the SorareData Twitter feed, you'll find it. The second is, speaking of Twitter, we just passed 25,000 followers. And as a thank you, we're going to do a giveaway. The tweet went out on that. We're giving away a Christopher Nkunku rare card, which is an absolutely massive card, particularly for a giveaway. So I believe you just have to do the classic follow and retweet, but do that. It's open until Tuesday, I believe, and then we'll have some sort of way to give it away.
Can I win?
Probably not. So the reason we have this card is because, well, maybe I don't even know if I should be saying all of this, but the reason we have this card to give away is that the person who won the last SorareData League is a SorareData employee now. And so they decided not to keep it. So that's kind of a plug to play the SorareData leagues, because you can win something like a Christopher Nkunku rare card. And since most of you, or pretty much all of you, don't work for us, you can keep the card if you win it. So anyway, we got that out of the way. Sean, let's crap on some U23 players. Well, shall we?
Well, let's get right into it.
No, like I said, we don't think that all of these guys are necessarily like dead. And there are some, I mean, this is a list of very, very, very good players. So we'll put it that way. Some are better in real life than they are on Sorare. And so that's kind of why we have them on the list. Like, the point of this show, like literally the point of all of these shows, the SorareData strategy show, is to hopefully provide some advice and information that makes you better at Sorare. And that, is both in the game. Sean and I, the way that we play, we focus more on SO5. That doesn't mean we don't like recognize that guys could be more expensive later, or we buy guys now who we think will be better in SO5 later. Like, we don't wait until they're great to buy them. But I think we both kind of have a more, I want to say, realistic view on collectibility of what these cards are now. Again, like, I think we can say if one of these guys on the list, like, yes, he's going to be better in 3 years and it'll be more expensive in 3 years. But do we think that allocating the resources to get these cards now is better than just playing SO5, making your other lineups better and maybe you can win it? So anyway, there's already some pushback in the chat for the first guy on this list. We were going to go by.
We should go by position.
We're going to go by position. Yes.
We should go by positions. We got to go by positions.
But I promise you that there is a reasonable discussion about Pedri, who is first on this list, but we will get to midfielders in a little bit.
True. Bury it.
So we, like I said, the link to this is in the description of the video. If you are following, or if you're listening to an audio version here, this will be made public, so you can just look it up. It's just called, what did I call it? SorareData Strategy Show, Overpriced U23s. So Goalkeeper, we'll start with Goalkeeper. I don't think the names on the list are necessarily shocking to people, particularly those who watch this show. I am going to argue, I think, with you about one of them in particular.
Which one?
And he's at the top of the list.
Okay.
But, well, yeah, we might as well start there.
It's a good place to start. I'm curious, what is your thought process on this one?
Yeah, so the first on the list is Gianluigi Donnarumma, and is a guy that you and I have kind of joked about for months, that people buy him and you have to pay a pretty sizable premium to get him, and the subsequent frustration when he doesn't start, and the reactions like, I can't believe it, when like it's completely believable that he doesn't start because we just don't know. So the discussion with U23s is always about like utility. And you're like, oh, you get to use them in U23s, you can use them in the regionals, you can use them in All-Stars. So like there are multiple places you can play these cards. And Donnarumma is like one of these guys that we go back and forth whether he's actually better in Champion Europe than he is in U23. Like, I think you've called him like a Champion Europe goalkeeper.
Yeah.
And I think that I think it's a more realistic expectation that he is the clear-cut starter this coming season.
Yes.
So if you have convinced yourself that's the case, you're paying a decent amount for a player that gives you this dual utility. But given his price against some of the other upper tier, and I think if he started every game, he's an upper tier Champion Europe goalkeeper, the price isn't that bad. And so if you're like, do I buy Donnarumma or Alisson or Courtois, and you put them in that group, I don't think whatever the actual realistic price is these days is that bad for a player who is going to be in his last year of U23 eligibility. And before I let you hit back on this, that's one of the things that Sean and I really wanted to focus on is we realize like the European season hasn't started yet. For some people, for some leagues, it starts today. But 1 year of U23 eligibility is a pretty big negative for us in terms of like whether you want to overpay for one season. So I think the difference with Donnarumma, and we see it with a few other players, is we know what like we know what happens when he loses his U23 eligibility. He simply becomes one of the best champion Europe goalkeepers. And at this price, I think it's okay.
Oh, I thought we were going to disagree. Well, we're disagreeing in a different way. I actually think he is well worth his price. I think that he is arguably, if we had unlimited funds, again, whenever we talk about stuff, like Laird and I will joke about it off stream as well, but like we're not talking about guys that are 0.02 ETH a lot of the time. Like most every time we're talking about guys that are legit higher end players, and this is no different of a stream here today. But like if you have a lot of funds at the moment, to me, Donnarumma is the clear cut guy that I would buy in Champ Europe. Because effectively to me, like I'm just going to call him what he probably is. And that's like a 7-year younger version of Thibaut Courtois, which if Thibaut Courtois is going for, let's call it 5 ETH, there's no reason Donnarumma shouldn't be more than that, which like currently he's slightly above it. But so like, yeah, like I don't view him as a U23 goalie because I view him as a Champ Europe goalie as well. But like, I think that he is very viable on the list. And I think that like having him is great. You just got to understand that like you're getting the year out of him in U23. You may or may not even use him in U23. And then he just moves into Champ where he should be priced right around where he's at right now. Like there should be no difference. So like if anything, you buy him now because you have that year where you have additional flexibility. So we have come full circle, I think, where last year we made fun of everyone that was playing him and recklessly getting destroyed because he was out of lineups and was upset about that. To where like I think he's perfectly priced right now. I would totally recommend getting one. Even like I said, like I think towards the end of last year it even made sense to get one. But like he's just a really strong option right now. Like you see, he's there with Courtois, Mignon, Allison, like all those guys. Like he's ahead of Neuer. Like he just has so much additional U23 or so much age eligibility over all these guys. Like all these other guys are in their late 20s or early 30s, with the exception of Neuer, who's obviously older. But like, so him being priced like this is fine. Like I think it's a totally fine price with what you're getting out of it. It's just a matter of, again, now like, will he play? Will he not play? And you have to sort of wade through that. But I think at this point, he's going to be the starter this year. I don't think there's going to be a situation like we saw last year. So I think he's totally fine. And then, so like, I'll transition right into the next batch of guys that we have here. And that is on Maximiano and Lafont. So again, they are both Champ Europe guys. However, they are not elite because they are on teams that are not obviously as high quality as what PSG is and what the leagues are. So of the two of these guys, I think there is some viability to having both of them. I know I've been giving Laird some grief off stream about Maximiano and the fact that he should sell. But like, to me, both of these guys are fine. I will say that, so Maximiano for me is on a much better team than Lafont. So like, to me, Lafont should not be quite the price point of what Maximiano is. However, like looking at it, I think that there's a lot of validity between the two of them, because if you look and you go back to that the Champs goaltenders that we just looked at there, and you look more so at like a Hradecki type, guys like Unai Simon, they are priced right with them. Oblak, Bono, like Koval, guys like that, they're priced very similarly, and I think it's fair. So like, to me, these U23 goalies that are Champ EU goalies are priced effectively as they are Champ goalies and not U23 goalies. Would you agree?
No, I won't. No, I think the Lafont and Maximiano obviously are priced where they are because of the midweek utility. Somebody brought up Okoye in the chat. He obviously has midweek utility as well, because playing in the championship, you have all these games. We'll get to that in a quick second when we talk about the two guys at the bottom of this list. But I think that's kind of the bonus that you have, or the premium you have to pay for those two guys. Like, I don't think they're necessarily priced like champion Europe goalkeepers. It's U23s with midweek, which that's it. I think it's as simple as that. You have been giving me a hard time about Maximiano by constantly talking about how he only has 1 year left of U23 eligibility. And obviously, like, he's not going to be priced like, if you thought that he was being priced just as a champion Europe goalie, then like he should be in this range, right? So like, is he not? Yeah. Is there actually zero U23 premium?
I don't think there's any premium on these guys. I think the ones that are having the U23 premium are guys like Okoye and Verbrueggen and guys like that. So like, I think those guys are more getting the U23 premium, and these guys are more so they're just champ EU goalies. Like, they are like mid-range champ EU goalies. They're like in the same ballpark as these other guys that are mid-range champ EU goalies. So like, I don't think there's any U23 tax on these goalies whatsoever. Part of me making fun of you with Maximiano is before he actually finalized the deal with Lazio. Like, if he was going to go to some of those other options, like, yes, that would have been quite disastrous for you.
Yeah, never a doubt, Sean. Never a doubt.
No, you were pretty strong on that. I will say you were pretty strong that he was going to end up going somewhere that was relevant.
Yeah. Yeah, and he did. It is kind of interesting that, like, not that it's as easy as this, but like being able to trade Maximiano for like Ter Stegen or Simone or Oblak, like, you're obviously getting a better champ Europe goalkeeper, probably Lafont to those guys in terms of like actual champ Europe utility. But so does that mean they're underpriced actually?
I wouldn't say they're underpriced. Because realistically speaking, you're not in theory using them usually in U23, because you generally consider whatever the higher valued region as the region of which the card is. I just think there's not any, maybe a little bit, maybe they should have some sort of tax on it because you do have flexibility on them. So I think there's some flexibility, but I mean, if you look at these guys compared to like the challenger EU guys that are U23 and stuff, I don't see much of a tax on these guys due to being champ EU goalies.
I think it's just like midweek, right?
Yeah.
You're talking about challenger U23 goalkeepers?
Yeah, so midweek and something that was just brought up. So, and this is something in general that I have comments on. People just disrespect the Asian and American U23 options. Like, I'm not saying they're amazing or they're fantastic, but there's a lot of overlap between Asia and America in the European season.
Yeah.
Especially when you're considering the leagues like Austria that has major windows of break, and Russia where they have major windows of break. Like, it's really not that much different than what you're looking at in terms of America and Asia. So like, someone just talked about Safonov and like why Safonov maybe isn't as good. So for me, Safonov's a little bit overpriced. I own one, haven't sold. I just keep it. I actually own 4 of these guys, I guess, that are on this list. But like, so for me, Safonov has no midweek utility. The Russian situation is precarious, to say the least. We just don't know what's going to happen with that. And he has the Russian break that is just not super duper appealing. So like, to me, like, if he's the guy that ages out, I would probably rather go elsewhere. Like, I'd rather go to a Maximiano who also ages out, but is on a much better team in a much better league and isn't someone that I have to worry about. And he also has the midweek utility. So like, for me, of this group, and like we said, some of these guys that are on this list aren't here to be like, oh, this guy's overpriced. They're here to be like compared to other guys as well. So like, for me, of those 3 that are in a very similar tier, Safonov is the one that is the most overpriced of the bunch.
Yeah, it feels that way. But just, I mean, it really comes down to just utility. That you get 1 year left of regular Russian schedule. You can play in Challenger also, but like, Krasnodar is not like great enough that you're like, oh, let me get him, like pay extra to get Safonov because I get like access to the Krasnodar.
They're like a top third-ish
They're
team.
fine, yeah.
Which is fine. They're not going to smash. And then so Mikey just talked about it's dangerous buying midweek utility with clubs changing lineups in the middle of the midweeks. The issue is so teams that change their lineup in the middle of the midweeks are typically your super top end cards that are not in Champs League. So if you're in like the Premier League and you're playing in Europa League, you're going to rotate. Donnaruma's not going to rotate. And then like Lafont, I don't think is going to rotate because Nantes is going to take Europa League really serious. Maximiano may rotate. Maximiano may rotate out in the midweek. And then obviously Safonov doesn't have the midweek. But you can look at midweek situations and find guys that will probably play in the midweeks and be totally fine. Yeah. So Stokey just said, if Safonov played for Zenit, would that change my mind about him? Yes. If Safonov was like the locked in starter at Zenit, I would at least say that he is probably similar to like Diego Costa, except for the fact, or I'm sorry, he would just be more locked in as like on an elite team where I think I could get a high chance at shutouts, at clean sheets. But the whole Russian league as a whole, like you're really capped the amount of games you're going to play in the Russian league compared to some of these other leagues.
Right. I think that's sort of the point. Like, I don't think his price like changes all that much. I mean, obviously it'll change a little bit if he was at Zenit, but utility wise, it's the same. Like you're not getting any extra utility going to Zenit. You're obviously getting like slightly better scores, but
Correct.
Realistically, what are you getting? Like 5 extra clean sheets?
Yeah, something like that. And then so Quinny's asked about who he's going to rotate with. Someone he could rotate is what I'm saying. I'm not saying he's definitive. And then Baptiste, then it's Gusto asked about Diego Costa being priced out for World Cup. I doubt it. No one cares about the World Cup.
Yeah, I don't think so.
And people that say, well, that's not true. Some people care about it. Like our good DGen buddy Scosmo is like researching 9 months in advance. But like in reality, no one cares about the World Cup. Like Diego Costa's prices has no impact on the World Cup and him being the U23 goalie there.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's built in that. I mean, if that was the case, Donnarumma would have seen like a drop when Italy got eliminated from contention, and that didn't happen. So
correct.
Let's talk about the two. Oh, sorry.
World Cup's just sort of like, hey, it's like here's like it's like when you own a stock and you get paid that dividend of like 3 cents. It's like here's your 3 cents, and you're like, cool. And that's just it. Like, it doesn't impact anything. It's just like, here's your dividend. So like you getting World Cup usage out of them is just like a little dividend.
Yeah. Peace Love Understanding was saying Zenit's U23 goalkeeper is going for 2 ETH at the moment. The big difference there is that he's like 19. Like you have potentially like 4 years of U23, 5 years. So
he also isn't locked in. That their situation's a bit more murky. But yeah, like the fact that he's getting a lot more time frame like that's definitely it.
Yeah. So Sam brought up how Costa is the only U23 goalie in the World Cup. And like the only response I have to that is like, so how many rewards do you think there are going to be in U23 World Cup?
0.
If there's one goalie that we can choose from.
0. I don't even think they'll do U23 in the World Cup. I don't even think there'll be U23 contest at the World Cup.
None.
I think they're not going to. I think they will like not open anything except for like they'll have specials.
Yeah, I was going to say, I bet you can see like a Threekly during the World U23 Threekly, so we don't have to pay or getting a goalkeeper. Yeah, he's also not like the locked in Portugal starter too.
Yeah, that's
when he started once, what was that, 2 breaks ago, and everyone's like, we got one, and then didn't Patricio start like the next match, and everyone's like, oh shit.
They rotated during Nations League that no one cared about, but Costa won the games that got them to the World Cup, and we're so far away. Like we can't really talk about we're 6 months out. Someone could be a 23 goalie because of injuries or something at that point too. Like at the beginning of last year, like Bijlo wasn't near the top of the Dutch goaltending list. Then he started, and then he got hurt, and then he was just not in the list again when they went to Nations League despite being back. So I wouldn't look too much into it, but like we're looking like we will probably get more of a breakdown as we get closer. But like as of now, the only one that we think will be starting is Diego Costa. But 1, does it matter? And 2, it's 6 months out. There could end up being more as we get closer.
Yeah. Yep.
Especially
totally.
when you look at like the smaller regions, I guess, like I would say it's not. Nah, it is. But I was gonna say, like, some of these random teams that are like more smaller teams, like the African teams could have a U23 goalie like pops up. Like that could be their goalie that makes the most sense at that time. Obviously, like, do I expect a U23 goalie to start for France? No. But do I expect maybe someone could like squeak in there for one of these other nations? Possibly.
Sure. So let's talk about the last two guys on this list. We've got Muric and Verbrueggen. The funny thing about these two is that they're linked to the same club. That club's not going to get both of them. One rumor is more recent than the other, which is why we've seen Verbrueggen. Is it Bruggen? Verbrueggen? Guy never plays, so I have no idea what his name is. His price has been skyrocketing, and Muric is coming down because the place he was supposed to go, which is Burnley, is apparently getting Verbrueggen. I'm going to say his name twice every time because I don't know how to say it. So you are completely biased on this discussion, but we're going to have it anyway.
I'm not biased. We can go ahead. I'm not biased in terms of like one side or the other per se.
So we have both bought Verbrueggen cards recently. I bought limited, you bought a rare. The price has skyrocketed because the rumor of Burnley from last week was just said again this week, and people decided to pay attention this week. And the outcomes for both of these goalkeepers is very different because of their age. Verbrueggen's 19, so he's got U23 eligibility until 2027. Muric is coming up to his last year of U23 eligibility. The expectation is that Muric, who is owned by Manchester City, will get another loan. Like, they have a backup goalkeeper, so that it makes no sense for him to stay. But we don't know where he's going. Verbrueggen has zero links other than Burnley. So, like, if he doesn't go, we're looking at like another year as a backup at Anderlecht. Would you buy Verbrueggen at 2 ETH right now?
No, I would not buy Verbrueggen at 2 ETH right now.
I would 1.5. I don't even know what. Yeah, 1.5. Let's call it.
I would also not buy Muric at 2 ETH though.
Well, Muric has been one that we've crapped on for months, and all he did was just like bang out 70s for a long time. But now that we're back to reality,
I just like Muric ages out. He has no. So like, here's the thing, right? If we're comparing the two of these guys, which for this perspective, we're gonna do it. Here's where we get a like look at them, right? Muric, in my opinion, is never gonna play at a high level, because if he was, we would have seen him get more links to stuff like that at this point. And like, City clearly isn't interested. They're willing to get rid of him, which, I mean, it's understandable. City's a big club, but like, he goes to some random team in Turkey. Then he's linked to Burnley in the Championship. Like, this isn't a guy that's going to end up on Real Madrid starting for them, right? So,
well, yeah, this is a guy. I'll just say, like, he's not someone who, once he's not U23, we want.
Correct.
Like Donnarumma, you want after he's ages out. Muric just becomes a guy.
So when you look at then you go over to Verbrueggen, right? And like, I agree, the rumors right now, and John mentioned about the rumors, like they just plowed Verbrueggen through the roof, which they 100% did. Like the rumors have just skyrocketed Verbrueggen. And it's like, here's the thing with Verbrueggen. Verbrueggen is a pretty high-end goaltender prospect. Like, he, in theory, could end up getting a Van de Voort type situation. Or like, he could end up going to Burnley and then going to a high-end club eventually. Like, I think Verbrueggen's a pretty high-end prospect comparatively to Muric at this point. I also think you're going to get a substantial amount of U23 games out of Verbrueggen than you're going to out of Muric. Now, whether or not they're this year or a following year, I don't know the answer to that. But would you agree you're going to get a lot more U23 games out of Verbrueggen over the long run?
Yeah, I mean, it's as simple as like, he's 19, and if he starts, then that's it. One thing that kind of came up, I forget, in some Discord we're in, is like, it's it seems weird to me, and I kind of brought up the fact that the Burnley link is there because Vincent Kompany's there, and he brought his goalkeeper coach, who apparently loved Verbrueggen. Like, there are no other links. So, like, if he doesn't go to Burnley, he's going to be a backup again this season. Like, it's as simple as that. Like, I don't think.
There's also links of Van Kronbruge getting sent off, and if Van Kronbruge
Well,
got sent off, Verbrueggen starting at Anderlecht is very top end goaltender.
like, absolutely. Like, but I think we. So those are the two options. Like, it's not. He's not some like goalkeeper prospect that's now available, and a lot of clubs are like, oh, we should go get it. Like, Gabriel Slonina gets more transfer talk than Bart Verbrueggen. And so to say like he's a high-end prospect when nobody else is really looking, I struggle to see like him going to like a dominant team at some point. And if you're like, well, he's got 7 years left?
Yeah.
5 years left. Like he might, but like realistically, he's at Burnley for 5 years, and like that could be great.
That would be awesome. I'd sign me up for that.
Or they get promoted, and now he's like a Premier League U23 goalkeeper, which like without midweeks likely, and like is that good enough?
Yeah.
Are you going to play him that often?
If you told me that Verbrueggen was locked in at Burnley for 5 years as their goalkeeper right now, I would pay 5 ETH for that card. Like, that's just such a good card. That's what we talk about. So here's the other comparison for everyone too. If Verbrueggen signs for Burnley today, this is a big hypothetical. So like hypothetically speaking, Verbrueggen gets announced to Burnley today, locked in starter. Again, all of this is hypothetical. He's a much better card than Okoye. And if Okoye is selling for 2.8, Verbrueggen's got to be like a 3.5 ETH card in that scenario. Granted, obviously, like there's a lot of things with that are like he has to sign with them. He has to be locked in as the starter, and Peacock Farrell could get starts too. So you have that as a question. But like in terms of, I do think if a coach goes somewhere and they want to bring someone with them, that's usually a good sign for that person, because that coach has experience with that person. They clearly like what they're seeing with that person. They want that person. So to me, that's always a fantastic sign.
I think the one thing you can't ignore is there's a non-zero chance that he goes to Burnley and doesn't start.
There is. I agree with that. I do think that is a part of the equation. But again, I still think that I actually will say, being on a team like that where you like don't start at this young of an age, you just get loaned out a bunch. Like if you look at look at what happens in Muric. Muric gets loaned out every year because of that situation. Like he's just not good enough to be on like that top team. So eventually they loan him out because he's still really young, and they get value out of him. They get to see what they want out of him. So like I said, I just don't think that there's a bad long-term situation for Verbrueggen. I think obviously there's a short-term situation that is not beneficial for Verbrueggen. But I bought him at 0.6 or 0.7. Like I didn't pay 1.8.
Yeah.
Would I come in and just jump in at 1.8? No. I think there's way too much risk around him for this upcoming season to be jumping in at 1.8. Now that said, if he goes to Burnley and you think he's going to start, he's better than Okoye. So if you base it off Okoye, he should be a 3.5 to 4 ETH card if he signs for Burnley and they're like, this is our guy.
Yes. Yeah. I completely agree with that. I just think that there's a pretty big jump from being a backup in Belgium to being a starter in the championship and expecting that to just like happen with no problem. And I feel like the huge increase in price this quickly looks at him like, yeah, he's going to be locked in and he'll be fine. So.
Yeah, so It's Gusto talked about Okoye having national team eligibility. That doesn't matter. Unless Sorare comes out and fixes the prizes for international weeks, then Okoye at AFCON getting no coverage does not do anything for Okoye having national team eligibility. I think
even if they did get AFCON coverage, I'm not sure it matters.
Oh, we did. Yeah, we did. Well, okay, African qualifier coverage, whatever.
No, I just mean anything. Like,
but anytime anyone brings up the so-and-so has international eligibility, it's like, cool. It just doesn't matter. It matters like so small of an amount that like you just don't even factor it in.
Yeah.
AFCON was covered. I was thinking of like African qualifiers and like AFCON qualifiers. They have very limited coverage of the African region. The only thing that we've gotten has been AFCON.
Yep.
Which I think is less than every other region, right?
I think so.
Well, like obviously outside of like Oceania.
Well, I mean, we didn't get much CONCACAF stuff, to be honest.
We didn't get much CONCACAF stuff, but I still think we got more CONCACAF because CONCACAF we got the whole. Yeah, we got the whole.
Did we only got the hex, right? We didn't get before.
Yeah,
that.
but the hex. Well, it wasn't the hex. It was like the Ocho or whatever it was this year.
Right.
But like that provided 14 games, right? AFCON was like at most 6 if you won.
Yeah. Now that I've said that out loud, I'm not sure we even got all that. But anyway,
I don't even know what we got. I don't know what we get for international stuff. I just sit there and wait and see if it shows up. Like someone actually, a good example is someone was asking about the Champs League coverage for next week and whether or not we have Champs League coverage, because in the past we have, and then this year we don't. But maybe last year we had a different round. So it's more so like, to me, I'm just like, oh, they're in my lineups and I can
yeah.
That you find out when it's because I just like and to be fair, that stuff actually has more value than like international stuff. Like if you get Champs League coverage in like whatever playoff round they're in right now, that provides way more value than an international window. But like again, like I don't even know what we get coverage for anymore. Like all I care about and realistically expect is coverage of the leagues that they are in, and then Champs, Europa, Conference leagues. Like those are what I expect. Anything on top of that's like great.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. Mike Baston brought up the fact that this move from Jupiler to the championship didn't work out that well for Ethan Horvath. So
from a talent perspective, Verbrueggen, I think, is a way better talent than Okoye.
Yeah, just because I don't think we have any idea, to be honest.
Well, we don't. But the starting goaltender for Nigeria isn't necessarily the best goaltender in the world. Just because someone and that goes for any.
I think it was a Verbrueggen comment, not Okoye.
Yeah, but it was in regards to in regards to Okoye and Verbrueggen. I think that you're right. Realistically, it's goalie. It as long as you are a good, solid goalie, you're fine.
Yeah.
Realistically. Now that said, I saw something on Twitter the other day about like the Nigerian Champs League or something, and they were like taking penalties, and the goaltender just stood there because it was clearly like a match fixing situation.
That's for another time. Let's move on to defenders. As always, we talked really long about goalkeepers, which is the guys we hate the most. So this was the shortest list that we had to start. We added a few others. To be honest, not that I think some of these guys are like don't belong here, but like I think they all deserve a discussion. For those who are not watching, we've got Upamecano, Schlotterbeck, De Ligt, Hakimi, Sutalo, and Jules Koundé. Part of it is that there are just not that many guys who are really expensive who are like U23 defenders. And so like the list kind of cuts itself down anyway. There are questions about all of these guys. And I think that's the only reason why. Like they're all very expensive. I think we kind of agree that in the right situations, at least for 4 of them, they could just like absolutely smash if we knew like they were locked in and all of that, but they're kind of like question marks on all these guys. You added Schlotterbeck and De Ligt. Is it like, why do you not like those guys?
Well, so first of all, like I don't necessarily think any of these guys are that overpriced and that bad. Like I really don't think anyone on this list is that bad. Defender, the reason the list is small is there really weren't that many people that were super expensive that I would be like, this guy's not really worthwhile.
Agreed.
Like you said, all of these guys have question marks. So the only comment I would make in terms of Schlotterbeck is, and Upamecano, same thing. Like both of them, they are the same price as Yuri and Timber, and Timber staying at Ajax. I would much rather have Timber if I had a choice out of the 3. That's realistically my only knock on them. Like, do you have anything else on those two?
No, I think that makes sense. I think the difference with the two, like Upamecano should be locked in at Bayern. It's like as simple as that. But he's not,
but he's not.
But he's not. And so there's like that small little bit of doubt. Schlotterbeck, I feel like you're paying Freiburg prices where he smashed at Dortmund, which is like a better team, so there's more utility. But we haven't really seen any like Dortmund defenders, center backs like smash like he did at Freiburg. And so I think you're basically paying for past production and expecting it to happen in the future, which like I don't think is necessarily bad. Like I think he's great. I would love to have one. I don't. De Ligt is kind of the reason why Upamecano is on the list. Like the De Ligt to Bayern rumors kind of make Upamecano just make you question it. That's all. But I think it's fine. Like I think they're all fine. And if I had the money, I would buy them. I just don't. And so it's as simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much like in terms of Hakimi, like even Hakimi, like I don't think he's that good at that price, but I understand why he's that price. People are talking about Nuno Mendes. The reason we didn't include him is because he's not really priced that high anymore. That said, I mean, yes, he's probably overpriced at an ETH. I don't think he's.
That's where he is, an ETH.
He's about an ETH. I don't think he's necessarily worth an ETH per se, but like he's also not like he's not priced up at Hakimi price, right? If he was priced up at Hakimi price, I'd be like, why are you buying this guy over someone else? But like, I think Nuno Mendes is probably more than I would pay for it, and like I said, like all these guys, I don't think are that drastically overpriced that it's like someone we should be mentioning and bring down. Like you said, like literally every single one of these guys has a question mark around him. Upamecano is De Ligt coming? Schlotterbeck is, can he replicate what he did at Freiburg when none of the guys at Bayern have shown the ability to do so recently? Is De Ligt going to go to Bayern? Hakimi just isn't that good because he has major holes in his SO5 game. Sutalo, like people have mentioned, he has some rumors that are very terrible out there. And Sutalo is like in a very purgatory state right now.
It's
because
really
like,
tough.
he's like a 3 to 4 ETH card if he stays, and he's like a half an ETH card if he goes. And like he's pretty much right in the wheelhouse of like right in the middle of no one knows what he's gonna do. The fact that he hasn't dipped to like 1 ETH is a testament to the fact that people just do not know if he's gonna stay or go. And people are like, the people that are selling don't want, and I was one of them. I listed him and then I pulled him down. When it seemed like he was going to start this weekend, people do not know if he's going to get sold this window or not, and it's a testament to that. Like people that want to buy will not pay a price, so they clearly are not comfortable saying he's going to stay. And then the people with him are not plowing the floor. Like his floor could have been plowed like Solette, but it's not because people are not convinced he's leaving either. So it's a weird spot. And then Koundé, he has a lot of options at this moment. So like. But again, he's there. I mean, he's shown that he can be pretty solid. Where exactly he'll go, we don't know as of now. So, like, yeah, like realistically, the reason we have the defenders is because nobody is drastically mispriced at defenders, I don't think. Like, no one is a complete out their price point. Now, that said, I think some of these guys will be there. Like, if Sutala leaves, obviously 1.7 is way too high for him. And if De Ligt goes to Bayern, obviously 4 is probably too much for Upamecano, and then probably 2.5 is too low for De Ligt.
Right.
So it's like it's a weird situation where so much of the defensive spots are dependent on who's going to go and where.
Yep. No, I think that's absolutely it. The biggest issue with Sutalo that you said it, like no matter where he goes, it's probably a downgrade. Like he's not going to Ajax, and so other than that, I'm not sure there's like a spot he can go to that, almost guarantees he scores as well as he did last season. So, and Koundé, I think, is just here because he only has 1 year left and he's hurt and like, we don't know where he's going.
Yeah. I don't.
That's also why nobody's been buying him recently.
I don't particularly love his card right now per se. For that reason, like, I mean, he was fine last year. Which part of this could be because of the team he was on. It wasn't like the god team or anything, but like he was fine. he wasn't like a smash. Like he very seldomly went out there and ripped like 35 plus point AA games.
Yeah.
Which again is attributed to the team that he was on not being the best team per se.
Yep.
Sotalo at Ajax is probably the same as Timber. So whatever Timber is, because they both have similar ages. So I would imagine you get a similar price point. But I mean, like Sotalo's not going to Ajax, obviously, but
yeah. Let's go to midfielders, where we have some really, really, really good players on this list.
We do.
Some of which we have here just to get angry at people, just get people angry at us. I did not put Pedri on this list. I did put Gavi on the list, though. So I guess we kind of wanted to discuss them together. And there was another one that you added late, Camavinga. I was going to put Tchouaméni on the list. You asked for Tchouaméni and Camavinga, and we'll get to them. I actually want to start with Joey Veerman. So when Andy and I had Sam Ty on a few weeks ago about like guys who might regress, I almost asked him to talk about Joey Veerman, and I didn't. For the record, I own a Joey Veerman Limited. I wish I had a rare, but I don't. And I can't possibly get it now. Veerman feels like a situation where we are fully expecting to see him smash and expect PSV to be exactly the same as last year. And I think that a new manager just brings up like we are just not sure. And the price is at a point where it feels like we're sure. And Veerman's at this like, oh, who are your top U23 mids this year? And everyone's like Veerman. And then it's like everyone else. And I mean, it's possible Veerman just is like bottom of the top 10 list. And if that's the case, then is 3 ETH, or I don't even know what he's actually selling for these days. I
don't think he's sold recently, has he?
No, he really hasn't. Although, to be honest, I feel like it's mostly because people who are selling, they don't want to actually sell for something reasonable.
So, all right, here, I don't know if this is a hot take, but it might be. We'll see. Veerman is the best U23 mid in terms of if you made me pick who I think will be the best mid period of U23 options for this season, who would I take? I would take Veerman.
Okay.
The other side of this, so this is where the hot take comes in. I think of everyone we have on the list, period, he is the highest priced, most overpriced person, period. Is that contradictory? Because it might be, but like I think he's the best U23 mid option, but I also think he's the most overpriced. Like 3.5 for an aging out midfielder who we do have some questions about. Like there are some questions. I think that Veerman, I think he can be both. Like he can be both the person I expect to be the best this year, and he can also be the guy that I think is more overpriced than everyone else.
For sure.
And that's where I think he is right now. Like if I had a Veerman, I wouldn't sell. I also won't go buy. And I'm just sitting there looking at him like, I think he's going to be a really good play for this season, but.
Yeah, I think the consideration is if you think he's going to be the best, how much better is he than everyone else? Like if he turns in an L40 of 65, but we have 4 other guys who are like 60 to 64, does the extra like ETH, extra €1,000 that you have to spend to get him justify that 5-point increase? It might, we don't know, but it seems like there is the possibility that he doesn't get a lot more expensive. Like, I think that's actually some of the thing that I'm considering with Veerman is if you have him and you're thinking like how much better does he have to be than everyone else to get more expensive? That's sort of my question.
I don't know how he can get more expensive. Which is why I said he's overpriced. Because I don't really see what's he going to do to get over, how high is he going to go?
Right.
Like, I don't see how he can get to like a 6th card. I mean, that as of right now, like in this market, like how can he get to be way above everyone else? I don't see it. I just don't see how that could happen.
Yeah. I think the other thing with Veerman, though, is in order for him to get to 6 ETH, nobody else can get better. Like, he just has to be like shoulders above everyone else to be that expensive, or everyone is that expensive. Like, if he's 6 ETH, then Kamavinga's 5, and
Correct.
Jedson's 5, and Chouameni is 5.5. Like,
Yeah.
and at that point, like, then we're kind of having the same discussion. Like, yes, it went up, but everybody went up, and so it's just, he's really high on the list, and the expectation, like, he's priced as if he's going to be the best, and if you're basically taking him over the field, does that make him too expensive?
No, I mean, if you're taking him over the field and you say he is better than everyone else with definitive purposes, it's probably fair. But that's the problem. Like, it's fair, right? It's not like good. It's like okay, like that's okay. I do want to clarify too, by the way, like Kai Havertz is way worse than everyone on this list. And the reason I say that is because I just checked Discord and I had a message from Jimmer saying that I'm getting soft on him because he's not on the list. So I just want to clarify, Kai Havertz is way more overpriced than anyone on this list by a lot.
Yeah.
Just have to clarify that. But yeah, so like now moving into I think we can talk about them as like a foursome, honestly, even. Is Pedri, Tchouaméni, Gavi, and Camavinga, and their price points versus what you're going to get out of them versus what you could get out of them long term. And so like it's tricky for me. This is probably where Pires was talking about making my head wobble, because I think he's very high on Tchouaméni this season and thinks that he's going to start. But like, so I think for me, the issue is like all of these guys are okay in terms of like where things are. The only one that I think is probably a bit high, and you're going to disagree, this is where we'll get into disagreement, is Pedri. Pedri, in my opinion, he's probably the most he's of the four, he's the one that has played the most for the team that he's currently on. Like, obviously, Tchouaméni and Camavinga played more for their previous teams, but like we've seen Pedri play, and he's still young. And don't get me wrong, I would love a Pedri card. I think it's a great card to own. Would love to have one. Yes. Oh, Stokey also said Havertz so bad he didn't even make the list. Correct. That's how bad he is. Just had to clarify that. So, like, for me, like, let's call Pedri 5 ETH. I don't know if you can realistically plug. Here's a question for you, because you're a bigger Pedri homer than me here. If you had Pedri, are you comfortable plugging him into Champ Europe 3 this year?
Yes.
Okay. Are you so you are comfortable plugging Pedri in your most important lineups?
Yes.
Okay. So I don't agree with that. I think that he does not, as of now, he has not shown the ability to really smash. And that worries me a little bit in terms of like, should he be, because like to me, here's another question. If we look back on this, looking at those four, that group of four, who do you think has the highest upside as a player to be like the best player in the world? To me, that name is Gavi. To you, you're going to say Pedri.
The answer is none of them.
Well,
guys like this do not become the best players in the world.
That's why I'm saying Gavi has a better chance, because he's not exactly the same as the other three. He plays more of an offensive role, per se. But I mean, I guess it's also tricky. And then the other one that I will say is like, so Camavinga, even when he was playing consistently back at Rennes, he wasn't the biggest smasher from an SO5 perspective, typically. So, like, I guess I would say that I would probably prefer Tchouaméni over Camavinga, and Camavinga is like the worst of the group. Like, if you had to like rule out one of them, to me, it would probably be Camavinga. That'd be the one I want the least, I guess. But like, again, they're all great cards. Like, they all have high upside.
Yeah. So the reason I was willing to put Tchouaméni on this list and not Camavinga is age. And granted, Tchouaméni has 2 more years left. So like, it's not like he's aging out and we only have this 1 year, and like you have to hope that he finds a consistent role despite very, very good players who also play similar positions. And so, like, I think Real Madrid is going to be a bit of a mess this year. But if you think Tchouaméni locks that spot in, then like, sure, he makes a ton of sense. I think the expectation is that he's much more likely to play than Camavinga, which is why he's more expensive, and like that's reasonable as well. I think you're just going to have to wait much longer for Gavi. And like I think that's my only hesitation with Gavi is like you're just going to have to wait longer. And that doesn't mean he's not going to be worth it. I'm just like, I don't see Gavi getting to a point where everyone on the platform is like, God, I wish I had that card. Like everyone's like, yeah, it would be cool to have, but like I just don't see the type of player that he is turning into that. Not to say that Pedri turns into that either, or Tchouaméni or Camavinga. But like, I know that I'm getting, like, if Pedri's fit, I know he's playing, he's going to play every game, and he's going to do really well. And we just haven't seen that with Gavi yet. And obviously he's younger, so we have more time. But I can play Pedri now. That's the only difference, which is why he's so much more.
Here's a question. Would you rather have one of their cards or an Arda Güler?
Güler is so fun.
Like, which of them would you rather have?
I think it's stupid because I think I'd literally rather Güler.
By the way, Gavi is definitely different than them too because he's also younger.
Yeah.
I would agree with this, Gusto. Pedri fits the matrix, and Tekker's also mentioned about like Tchouaméni. A lot of his scoring was based on what his role was previously, and that is something that could change with where his role could be for Madrid as well. Yeah. But yeah, like all four of those, like, so I guess these are like the four guys that you're like, these are the guys that have the highest upside on these major teams in Spain, and that's just kind of what they are. The next person that I want to go to is someone else I told you to add, is David Turnbull. So here's the issue I have with Turnbull. And I like Turnbull from a perspective of the dude smashes when he plays. Like what he did last year when he played was just absolutely go out there and smack. The issue for me for Turnbull is that wasn't super consistent. He didn't do it all the time. He's not a locked-in starter. He very likely could leave and go to like West Ham or something. And then when like you're comparing him to these other guys we just talked about, I don't think that David Turnbull has the upside to be like best midfielder in the world. Yeah. He's like the type of guy that you're going to look at and be like, this guy's playing at West Ham for 8 years. Not that that's a bad thing. And he can score great at West Ham. Like, it's not like it's a bad thing, but like these other guys have the chances to be very, very special. And I don't think that Turnbull has that potential in him based on that.
I think the prices on Turnbull are as if he's a sure thing. Like it's as simple as that. And like we haven't seen any period where he's like a sure thing that we want to play every week.
Correct. So like for me, Turnbull is that's one that I don't do. And then another one that I don't understand current price point is Kvicha Kvaratskhelia, who I own, and I just don't understand why he's priced where he is right now. And I'm not saying he's bad, because he's not bad and he's not proven to be bad, and he's still young, obviously, but like he's being priced right now like he is just a massive, massive smasher that's proven to be a smasher. Like, and that's just not the case at all with where we're at. So like it's one of those things that like, could he be really good? Yes, but like you're paying, I don't think you're paying 2 ETH. Let's call it 1.5. It's somewhere between 1.2 and 2, somewhere in there. So we'll just call it like 1.5. This is a guy that like you're acting basically like he is an absolute smasher. And if you look at his log, a lot of his better games are with the Georgian national team too. They're not even with where he was. I don't know if he's going to start, although he does have a good chance at starting because obviously Napoli's lost a lot of people. But like, look at this. Like, this is a guy that's like playing more of an attacking midfielder that is just not probably quite as good as what he is. So it's going to be a big question mark. So Nanzo also brought up a good question, I think, or a good point. And the question out of the four that we were just talking about is who will become the next Kimmich or Cruz? Like, so we're talking like a 65 to 70 average mid that has just a fantastic AA. That one is the question that probably, to me, would lean maybe towards Pedri a bit more, and a bit away from Camavinga. Like, I just don't see Camavinga as the guy that's going to be a set piece monster. And maybe that's wrong. Maybe I'm not correct in that thought process, and therefore I'll miss out on the Camavinga. But again, I mean, I guess though, if I want a Camavinga, I'd probably just sit on the Camavinga, and then I'll find out eventually whether or not I was right or wrong on that, and not get punished for it.
I think it's definitely Pedri.
Yeah, and I know that's why you like him. See, I think Gavi of the four has the biggest upside to be like a big player that's like above what a Kimmich is. Whereas, like, I think in terms of like a Kimmich, it would be Pedri.
All right.
I'm not saying Gavi's going to hit it, because obviously it's very unlikely he hits it. But of the people that have the potential to hit it of that group, like, I would say it's probably him.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. A quick thing on Jedson, because somebody brought him up, Techers, I think.
Yeah.
He's one of those that fits into the new team. It's obviously a much better team, and we just don't know. I think Sean and I talked about Jedson privately a while ago, because I was considering trying to buy a Jedson. It's nice to see his price double since I went to buy him. But my argument against Jedson was the sample size is so small. And I think you could argue that, you can argue the same thing with Pedri. The biggest difference with me is Pedri's staying on this team, on the team that he has this small sample for, and he's 4 years younger. And so I think Jedson's priced we know exactly what's going to happen, kind of like Veerman. And I have less faith that we get these scores from Jedson than we continue to see from Veerman or Pedri. That's all.
Yeah, I don't have anything negative to say. You added Jedson. I didn't add Jedson. I think Jedson's definitely got some risk in him. I don't have any full negatives on Jedson compared to the next person on the list, which will surprise people as an American, but Gio Reyna is so expensive. And I just don't get it, because I just don't think he fits the matrix at all. And I just don't really see him being a guy that comes out there and just is a smash player. He's got to take another step up past Dortmund, I think, but he's got to stay healthy. This is a guy that's literally
as simple as that.
He's just injured all the time. And when he's not injured, he's okay, but he's not a guy that's going to go out there and plow 100 AA for you. The one game he had a 16 AA. He has he gets 10 to 15 AA type games, but he's not going to go out there and just rip a 35, 40 AA game, which, I mean, granted, the reason he gets there is because he's going to score a lot more decisives. But again, this is a guy that's just so injured, so injury prone. I just don't think he's set up with the matrix well. I think the matrix is against him as a midfielder. That I think that his price point's currently very rough. And then so Techers is just talking about his role with Beskitas is going to be a pure AA Hoover. I wouldn't put Jedson on the list. Jedson, that's why we didn't spend much time talking about him. Because I think Jedson could be fantastic.
Could be.
And we just don't know yet what Jedson's going to do. So for me, I'm fine with Jedson on the list. I understand why Laird put him on the list. I also I would not be selling a Jedson right now if I owned one. To be fair, most of these guys I wouldn't even sell. Even the guys that we're saying are overpriced, I probably wouldn't sell them, because I just don't want to get burned by that god tier player. You do not want to sell Gavi at 2 ETH if he becomes messy. You're going to hate your life. So I just am not interested in that. And then that segues into the bottoms on the list. We've talked about him before. I think Kulusevski is really poor. I would probably, if I had a Kulusevski, I would sell. Like, I don't see a path to him really being a super duper valuable player on anywhere. Like, I don't see him being a super duper great guy on the platform. And then Ketelar. So I actually don't think he's that overpriced at his current price tag. And that's because I think that he has the ability to be a really, really, really good player. I wouldn't probably go and buy him currently because I think he's probably too much for what you're getting out of him. But like, I think that he has the potential to end up in a big team one day. Like, I mean, we're already talking about him going to Milan, which, like, if you compare to some of those other guys, like, that's a good step in the right direction. But I'm not like in love with CDK, but I'm also not like full hating at this price point compared to what other people are priced at.
I mean, if he goes to Milan tomorrow, you'd never pay this price.
I wouldn't pay the price anyways. I just don't.
You would never tell anyone to spend 0.94 ETH, whatever that is in field.
I would rather
at Milan.
No, but I wouldn't. I'm not telling people to buy him. I just don't think it's some absurd price point in comparison to what some other people are. But I do. Here's the thing. All right, here's another thing, Laird. I think he actually has a chance to not play the role that he's been playing at Bruges.
Sure.
If he's not playing the role that he was playing at Bruges, I think he has a good shot at being a pretty decent player. So it realistically comes down to, like, what role does CDK end up in? And, like, is it a role that is more conducive to scoring than what his current role is? Like, his current role was obviously his current role was a striker.
Yeah.
As a striker, you're going to score really shit on the platform, right? So, like, I'm
Same
not.
He's a midfielder card too.
Yeah, but, like, if he actually becomes like a cam, like, let's say he becomes a 10, he has a shot to be a pretty decent card. Like, It's Gusto just said Leicester, and I'll just use them as an example. Like, James Madison's really, really good for Leicester. Like, he's not on the platform, but if you look up James Madison's scores, you're going to see a player that was, like, super productive. He had an L40 of 58, L15 of 65, and he's a guy that would go out there and put up some really strong games. He had 6 games last season where he had 90 plus. So I'm not saying Ketelar is going to be James Madison, because I don't think that's the case. But, like, if he moves more into a role like this, because so you see a lot more Sutalo starting for Zagreb. So that's bittersweet, because I literally took him out of every lineup because I wasn't sure. But also I'm glad he's starting, because that should it's a better sign for him staying than him not starting, obviously. But, like, so you look and you see a lot of turd box scores here. That's going to happen with the cam. It's the same thing with, like, Hakan. Like, you see some bad scores because if they don't get decisive, they typically don't have a good game. But when they get decisive, or, like, have a game where the offense is effectively, if they're playing a team where maybe it's a bit more bunkered, where they're having a lot more possession at the edge of the other team's box, a player like this can just smash. So, like, I'm not saying Ketelar is going to be that, but, like, I think he at least has a chance to be a different position than what he has been that is detrimental to him.
That's fair. Gone a bit long here, but we got forwards to talk about, so we'll jump into them, including our poster boy here, Ansu Fati. So let's just start with him, because I think what we said about Pedri and Gavi doesn't quite apply to him, even though you kind of can put them in this bucket of, like, really young future Barcelona stars. And I think the problem, the biggest difference is, I think we know that Pedri's going to play every game he's fit. He's going to start whenever he's fit, he's going to start. And I think Gavi is closer to that than Ansu Fati. And you're paying a lot for a player who you're probably not getting consistent production from this season, which is fine because he's 19. But you also have to believe that Barcelona are not going to keep doing what they always do and just sign more attacking players that he has to compete for playing time with. And the fact that you have to spend more for him than all of the guys on this list, plus plenty of others, just threw me off a little bit. And that's why I think he's a little overpriced.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really understand the Ansu Fati price. There are so many forwards in Barcelona, and I do understand that he's a major high-end guy. And like, would I rather have him than like a Vlahovic for a bit less? Yes, because I think
for sure.
He has way more upside than Vlahovic to be like a stud type player. But this guy, it's another guy that's been just constantly injured, can't get into the squad, just doesn't get enough playing time really. Like, is he going to become that elite level player? Maybe. I'm not going to say I don't think so, because he definitely could. But like his current price, like you're talking, like I can just go buy Vinicius Jr. for like another ETH more. Like I know it's the old thing that Laird likes to make fun of. Oh, you're just buying this guy who costs more. But yeah, if I can go buy Vinny Jr. for like 5.5 or whatever, compared to Fati at 4.5, like I would much rather just do that.
I would also like to have just one ETH just sitting around.
Yeah, I would like to have a ton of ETH sitting around as well. It'd make life a lot easier. But like I think the forward list as a whole is like a lot more in line with the guys that we think are overpriced. Like we talked about Vlahovic. Someone asked like why he wasn't the poster board today, and that's because he was recently. So like Laird didn't want to thumbnail him again. But to be fair, we wouldn't have thumbnailed him anyways. I think we would have thumbnailed.
It was too obvious.
Yeah, it was. But like Vlahovic, I mean, if he has 30 decisives this year, that's great in real life. That probably is what they're hoping for. That would be a pretty mediocre player in terms of SO5. So like I don't think Vlahovic is great. And then like Darwin, I mean, Darwin's 3.2, and let's just pretend he's not U23 because he's effectively not U23 anymore. Why are you paying?
I mean, he's got an entire season. Let's not.
Yeah, like I mean,
you love pretending like this entire season ahead of us means he's almost dead.
Can we get? I'll get back to that in December when half the season's over. Okay, but like I don't know. Like this guy's 3.2 and might sit on the bench the whole season. Like, I mean, he's probably gonna play, but like, there's not like as clear cut in terms of playing time. The person I wanted on the list that you didn't like was Brobbey. So Brian Brobbey, like, let's pretend he replicates what Haller did. Okay? And Haller was a 58 L40, very seldom spikes because there's no AA game. Like, how much is Brobbey worth, especially when he hasn't signed for Ajax? Like, he hasn't even signed. And I do think that even if he does sign, we're going to see a lot more situations with Tadic playing like a false nine or Tadic playing through the middle. He's not. I don't know if he's going to start every game. And another person, so Chris Quirk just mentioned them as well, and that's another name that I think should be discussed is Ademi. I just don't see how Ademi is quite worth what he is as well, because it's just, generally speaking, if you are like a number 9, if you are a striker, an out-and-out striker with little to no AA, it's very hard for you to become that smasher, right? Like Ademi was on a fantastic team last year that was very conducive to scoring goals. Bayern's very similar. Like, let's pretend he goes into the same role as what he did last year, but like, it's just, for me, like, it's very difficult for them to get up to like that type of level where you're like, this guy's a 65 to 70 average type player, because they just don't have the AA to support that. And when you don't have the AA to support that, you need to average like 2 to 3 decisives a game. Right. And that's just not realistic for anybody in the world.
Right. 3 decisives to get to 85 is not helpful. I mean, it's not something you can rely on. I'll put it that way. The only reason I wasn't going to put on is because like just any 20-year-old forward who could score every game for Ajax, I felt like needed to be on the list, or didn't need to be on the list.
Yeah, and it goes the whole thing. Like, we're talking about, like, for them to hit peaks, which we're talking like 90 to 100 point games, like, it's just very unrealistic for guys like Vlahovic, Brobbey, to realistically get there. So like, that's why it's difficult for them to happen. And yeah, like, Brobbey could not go to Ajax. If Brobbey doesn't go to Ajax, he's like a half an ETH card.
Yeah.
So it's a situation where like, you are literally paying, like, Brobbey's current price is that he is the locked-in number 9 for Ajax.
Yep.
That is his price. His price is he is the 9 for Ajax and will start every single game. That is just a super duper like unrealistic expectation at this current moment.
Yep, absolutely. I don't want to talk too much about my boy Talis Magno, but the only reason he's on this list is I feel like he's still priced as if he's not competing against all of these other guys. We make this big thing about Carlos Heel, who I didn't expect to bring up on a U23 show, but we talk about how like he has so much utility during the summer, and Talis Magno is kind of like that. Like reasonably, I don't think he is going to keep up this pace forever. And now that he's competing against other guys, like all the European star U23 forwards, I just don't think he should be one of the most expensive, which he is. Gakpo is still like a transfer risk, right? Like I think, like if we knew Gakpo was staying, do you think this is a justified price?
Yeah, definitely. If you're saying, yeah, definitely justified price. He's kind of in that like he's in that Sutalo range, right? Like he's priced like he is maybe leaving, maybe going. That's like where Gakpo's priced right now. Like Jasper Carlson's probably priced exactly the same. I think both of them are priced as in like we don't know what's going to happen with them, and that's where they're currently at.
Yeah, that's fair. The two guys I want to talk about together, Jens Odegaard and Jesper Karlsson, because they play together. Odegaard's floor is now higher, although I don't think he's selling for that. Both of them have a single year left of U23 eligibility. Odegaard's obviously joining the team that Karlsson has been on. I think the Karlsson transfer talk has died down, but as we've learned from others, sometimes it just pops up and it's just an absolute death march at that point. Do you think both of them should be the same price if they both stay the entire year?
No, Karlsson's definitely better if they stay. As of now, like based on what we saw, like unless it all depends on sets, right? Last year, Karlsson took like everything. So if that's a situation where Karlsson's still taking everything, Karlsson's a way better option. So it realistically is going to come down to like who's on sets, like what's going on with that stuff. But yeah, both stay in like the roles remain where Karlsson's on every set. Karlsson's a way better player than Odegaard. But Odegaard's not selling at 2. He's realistically selling at 1. So like that's just where his floor is, but he hasn't sold over 1. So like based on price points, like
that's fair.
That's more realistic. Like the 2 is probably unrealistic on Odegaard. Next person I wanted to bring up was Osimhen, who I like. Yeah. Like I think Osimhen is a great player. I think he's really good, but he has the same exact issues as Vlahovic, as all these other guys, where for him to really hit peaks, it's going to be very difficult because he's just not going to have an AA to support peaks. So you've got a guy that can go out there, bag, get his goal, get a decisive, but not really crack over 70, 75. So to me, like when we talk about all of these guys, their only path to like so rare greatness is being on like Bayern. If they're not on Bayern, they're not going to perform to a point where you're like, this guy's a 65 to 70 average player, which is realistically what you want for a lot of people. Now, I'm not saying I dislike Osimhen because I obviously think he's fantastic. I think he's a really good real life player. But in terms of sober at 2 ETH, it's really difficult for him to just go out there and absolutely smash.
The funny thing about Osimhen is kind of the opposite of what a few people have mentioned. I forget who it was earlier that we mentioned they had so few cards. Like Osimhen, despite Napoli not being renewed, we still have a ton of Osimhen cards on the platform. And so like if you wanted one, it's easy to get one. Like there's always one on the market. And so I feel like that kind of keeps his price not from getting too high, but like you've been trying to get him at Bayern all summer. And so
I actually think he's a great fit.
Yeah.
For there. Oh, actually, Laird, you'll be excited. Well, actually, I think Zarkipu maybe. I'm not sure who's starting for Zagreb yet, but I think Zarkipu might have just had a little early reaction because I don't see an official lineup, but according to the lineup he sent me, Big Lubes is starting at DM. I don't know if that's true though, because like it's he's showing the lineup from SofaScore.
I hate when you do that. Come on now.
He's showing the lineup from SofaScore, but like it's not an official lineup, I don't think.
Oh, then it's wrong then.
Well, it might be, but like Josh Forth sent me the same thing, and but he's also pulling it off SofaScore. So like I'm not sold that's the Zagreb lineup yet.
Ooh, you just got me all excited. Anyway, a few of these guys on the list are here because of transfer death. Sinister is one of them. He's one who we've already seen move. Now, one of the front guys for Leeds United. Tati's prices has been going down a lot. I think part of that is that MLS prices are kind of coming down. And there's really like no new rumors about him. He made some weird comment after the game recently, like, we'll see what happens or something like that. But he hasn't moved. Is he like decent at this price if he stays?
At 0.9?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Toddy's totally reasonable at 0.9. He's a totally realistic playable option at 0.9. I think you buy him. Like the thing is too with him is he has some of his options are really favorable. Like a lot of his rumors are really good, obviously, but then the Leeds one seems to be the most prominent, and that's obviously death. So he's priced in the I don't know range as well, I would say. Like he's in the I don't know if he's going to stay or go one.
Right. Yeah, so it just stays at that price basically. Like nobody wants to give him up. Well, obviously somebody's willing to sell.
He's been around there for a little bit now. He's been around there for a little bit. Like, and so like Abada's on this list. Abada's only on the list because he's probably not even going to start. I expect May to start on the right. But like the thing is Abada's really cheap, and if he does start, he smashes, and he's proven that already at Celtic. So I think Abada's just more so like, hey, he may not be a locked-in starter like some of these other guys.
Yep, that makes sense. I don't know if there's anyone else I really want to discuss on the list. If you told me Moussa Diaby had 10,000 cards on Sorare, I'd believe you. I think everybody who joined the platform before me has one.
Yeah, I don't understand his price. I mean, the dude was like on fire last year, and that's like his score's a 56 L40. Like, I just don't really see him as a tremendous option, in my opinion. That's
to have 4 scores of 90 or above when you've been on the platform for as long as he has is wild.
Yeah. It's like I don't know why he doesn't have AA. Like I would think he would have a better AA than he does. It's probably because he takes no sets. Sets really help in terms of defining an AA in situation.
Yeah.
Tackers asks no Doku slander. I don't have any Doku slander at where he's at price right now. Like that's in range with like what other guys like that are priced at. I'm not saying I would go buy one right now, but Laird seems to not like it. But
I would love a Doku.
Yeah, but are you going to go pay 0.9?
No.
What would you pay today for a Doku? I don't know what I'd pay. I'm not sure. I don't really care about having one though either.
This is a card that like I would be really happy to win, but I wouldn't buy it.
Yeah, I would probably not.
I don't have any lineups that are going to let me win this card anyway.
I agree. I wouldn't. I don't think I would sell it if I won it, but I also like him.
I'm shocked.
I don't think Doku is well, maybe. I don't think Doku has a chance to be like the god. Dude just can't score. He just can't score enough. Like
he's got a pretty good AA for a forward.
He does have a good AA.
The problem is that he just never plays.
He did back in the day.
Like.
He had a good AA as a forward. Sometimes he did, sometimes he didn't. It would depend. But yeah, I think it's I don't know. That's not a card that I'm like dying to have. That's not a card that I'm like going out there and being like, give me that card.
No, I still think that one of like the easiest trading strategies is just to trade in and out of Doku injuries. Simple as that. Yeah. Because when he gets hurt, people just want to get out so quickly.
No, I agree. It's just the thing is he doesn't go down. He just stays that price. It doesn't matter how many games he misses because he misses so many games and he just stays. Like he's gone up. Like his graph has gone up. Like yes, like every time he starts, you get that spike and like
people get so excited when he's back.
But like he doesn't.
You'll see a price spike because of a training picture.
Yeah, Like, it does happen. It's very weird.
Yeah, I would love to win one. All right, I think we're going to end it there. Thank you to everybody who has joined us live. It's always helpful to get your opinions so that we can kind of discuss them, and makes us think differently about what we were saying. At least me. Sean's pretty hell-bent on his opinions. So, but thank you to everybody for participating there. If you guys would please hit the like button, always appreciated. If you're watching the replay of it, you can do the same thing, because that's always nice. And if you're listening to the audio version, if you could please rate and review it wherever you listen. Next week's schedule is going to be a bit wonky because of baseball. And I guess I should have said this at the beginning. Obviously, we didn't talk about baseball at all. The plan is for this show to not be about baseball at all. We're going to keep talking about football. We will have separate baseball content. But this is not the place for it. So if you come here regularly and you're like, oh, they're going to change to baseball, we're not. We're going to stick with football, so don't worry about it. Although we will probably call it soccer more than football. So yeah, Sorare Andrews might be a little different this week, but the plan is for Sean and I to be back next Friday, talk about more football. So please come back and join us there. Thank you again. And Sean, good luck this weekend.